Alright guys, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a CEER paragraph today, and I'm also going to show you guys how to put a little bit of evidence to back up your claims. So we're going to take a look at my sample paragraph right here. You guys see I have a MOA header as well as like an awesome title. I also have an introductory paragraph where I totally use that hit introduction method. And you guys can also see I have my thesis statement at the very end. It says schools need to improve by helping students mentally and reducing stress. And y'all see how like I answered that prompt question, asking me how schools can improve. And you guys see I say schools need to improve by, right there. You guys can also see in the second half of my thesis, I also give like my reasons and ideas that might become my body paragraphs in response to the prompt. So we can help students mentally by reducing stress. So I'm going to start off by typing a sentence to keep on like pushing my thesis. A simple way for schools to improve is to provide more mental counseling and to hire more counselors for students. And there you go. Alright, so now I have my topic sentence in my claim, but I need evidence to back it up. Where am I going to find it? Well, easy. Just Google. And you guys can see I went out to like just Google and I typed up like mental counseling for students, news, so that I could find some news sources. And you guys can see it showed like a whole bunch of cool sources for me, and I just went for like the one that sounded the best. That was the fourth one where it said like news, research, and analysis. So I clicked on that and it eventually led me to like this big list. You guys can see like the title says articles on student mental health, and it had like 50 million articles. I just found like the first one that had a pretty interesting title. And at the very top here, you can see that the title is more academics and students have mental health problems than ever before. And I started reading through it just very quickly. I didn't even read the whole thing, just skimmed it through. And I found like one really important part that caught my eye. It said that issues that affect students in higher education means college, by the way, but it's found that 33% of students had experienced suicidal thoughts in the past academic year. On top of that, I also figured out like the author's name, Paul. I can't even say his last name, but I got what I needed. I found some cool information, something that might help me out. And so I went back to my document after copying that line and I just pasted it on. And so I put it into quotes. I cut it off halfway. So I put like ... to make sure that it shows that I cut it off halfway. But obviously I can't just like have that quote sit by itself, so I gotta type in like the author's name. I went back and I definitely like copy paste his name because I couldn't spell it, but I said author Paul whatever who writes for, and I gotta let like us know where the article came from. So it was University of Portsmouth. Stated that, and then I put a comma, and obviously I couldn't even spell Portsmouth. But yeah, there you go. That's all you guys need to do to like integrate evidence. All you guys gotta let me know is like who the author is and kind of like where the article came from. And that's all you guys need to do when you guys are quoting either a website or a news article or maybe a newspaper. The next important thing though is to obviously give a little bit of context and explain like kind of why this matters or when this happened. So I typed in that this was a study done in 2018. Obviously, that's kind of important since 2020 is way different than 2018. And obviously, because our reader is stupid, I do even a little bit more explaining. I let them know that this study was done during like a time without a pandemic, and obviously on much older students because it's done on college students. And remember, explaining your evidence is super important, and giving context, helping us understand like why it matters and kind of like how it fits into things. This is before you guys obviously go into your reasoning. You connect it back to your thesis. So the last part of CEER is obviously that reasoning after your explanation. And we need to like explain how our evidence proves our point. And so since we just like explained how, hey, look, even college students are being super stressed out and they're committing suicide, we can explain that high school students are even less mature and cannot handle stress as well. And remember guys, like your reader is stupid, so you have to imagine like a 5-year-old always asking you like, why is this important? Can you explain more? So I explained like the combination of a terrible situation, the pandemic, and less developed brains means that mental health is crucial. So I give them a solution that hiring more counselors is a fix for that. So I kind of like explained to them this is exactly what's going on and why this needs to change. But you can't just like end on, your solution, because we want to tie it back to your thesis. Remember, your body paragraph should be like a nice sandwich. It starts with like a simple way for schools to improve. So we got to finish off on that thesis or just saying like, hey, remember, this is how schools got to improve. So I'm going to like type out like, if schools spent more money on counselors and counseling, then schools can definitely improve. So you guys can see how I end the paragraph by repeating like, this is how schools can improve. It's the same way that I started off the paragraph, saying a simple way for schools to improve is to. And just like any good body paragraph, I told you guys, it needs to be a sandwich. You sandwich it between your thesis. And if you guys look back at your first paragraph, you guys see like the thesis is schools need to improve. And so we keep on repeating that in our body paragraphs. And that's all you guys really need to do for a body paragraph. You guys expand on like one of the points or ideas you guys came up with in your thesis, in your hit introduction. And then from there, you put a little bit of evidence, explain why that evidence matters, or maybe some of the context, and finally give us your reasoning. Like, how does this evidence prove your point? And for this here, it's like, how does your evidence prove that schools need to improve and improve in the way that you're suggesting? And obviously here, we're trying to explain that like schools can improve with more counselors and more counseling. And so hopefully if you guys just imagine that a 5-year-old is asking you, like, can you explain more? Why? Tell me more. Like, you have a really good explanation for your evidence, and you'll do a really good job explaining your reasoning also for the last E and R in a CEER paragraph. And that's basically it, guys. That's your paragraph, and that's it.